What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another tribute video, and for this one I'm going to talk about NBA Hall of Famer and Los Angeles Lakers legend Elgin Baylor. He passed away earlier today of natural causes at the age of 86 and a half. And of all the players who made their mark in the NBA long before I was born, Elgin Baylor was one of those players who I remember watching classic games on TV, and I was amazed by what he did on the court. I mean, he was that great at his craft. He played with such a creative flourish that had never been seen in professional basketball. He was drafted number 1 overall by the Los Angeles Lakers in 1958. But at the time, the Los Angeles Lakers were still in Minneapolis, so they were the Minneapolis Lakers at the time. The Minneapolis Lakers wouldn't move to Los Angeles until the 1959-1960 season, and that was when they moved to. That was when they moved out of Minneapolis into Los Angeles. But anyway, Elgin Baylor, in his 14 years with the Lakers, he had quite the roster on his at his side. And you have Wilt Chamberlain at center. You have Jerry West, who, if you look at the NBA logo, for those that don't know, if you look at the silhouette of the NBA logo, you see the figure holding the basketball. That's a picture of Jerry West. That's why he got the nickname of the logo. I literally had no idea of that until many years later. But anyway, Elgin Baylor, Rookie of the Year in the 58-59 NBA season. Number 1 overall, 1958, out of Seattle University. He was a 10-time member of the All-NBA First Team, and he was an 11-time All-Star. From the 1958-1959 NBA season all the way through the 1964-1965 NBA season, Elgin Baylor was in the All-Star game. And from the 1966-1967 NBA season all the way through the 1969-1970 NBA season, he was there too, in the All-Star game. What else is there? It's hard for me to say for certain what all I remember watching from Elgin Baylor when I was a kid. But again, this was a player who literally played long before I was even born. I mean, even after he retired, I wasn't even born yet. But I watched footage of him. Footage, many years later on when, things on the internet started to change, and I would watch classic games on television, like ESPN Classics or something, and they would have games on TV, like NBA Finals, or even the game against the New York Knicks, I want to say in November of, it was the 1960-1961 season, where he dropped 71 points on the New York Knicks. Actually, I think that was the first game that I ever watched on television featuring Elgin Baylor. But anyway, Elgin Baylor, he was a gifted shooter. He was a strong rebounder, and if you were to look up the definition of accomplished passer, look no further than Elgin Baylor. In my opinion, he was one of the greatest at the, especially at the forward position. Renowned for his acrobatic maneuvers on the on the court. He dazzled fans with his trademark hanging jump shots, and he would become one of the NBA's greatest players, and not just in the NBA, but also the history of the Los Angeles / Minneapolis Lakers. Displaying acrobatic brilliance that would foreshadow the athleticism of later generations of stars. I mean, like myself, I was born in early 1989, And the guys who I watched on television, they were, Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, the mailman, Karl Malone, speaking of the Los Angeles Lakers. But actually the Utah Jazz, around the time Karl Malone went to the Lakers, he was kind of sort of on the downward end of his career. But anyway, you had guys like, Karl the Mailman Malone, Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Vince Carter, Patrick Ewing, a host of others that I remember watching on television. So many great names. Excuse me, but with Elgin Baylor, he was only about 6 feet tall and about 5.5 inches, which was relatively short for a forward, even at the time he played. But he played above the rim, and he literally gave above the rim an all new meaning, especially when he would go flying towards the basket. His abilities to turn and twist in midair on his way to the basket, that was, I guess you could say that was a preview of things to come when it comes to the freewheeling shows that would be put on by the likes of Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and even Dr. J, Julius Erving of the Philadelphia 76ers. But then again, Elgin Baylor, he had a rather sturdy frame too. He was about 227 pounds, and that really complemented the finesse that he had on the court, because he was able to easily muscle his way to the basket and follow up on missed shots by maneuvering in order to score over the bigger players. But when it comes to his passing and his rebounding abilities, they were just phenomenal. The likes of which we've probably never even seen before, or will probably never see again. But in his own way, Elgin Baylor, he made his mark in the NBA, and he paved a Hall of Fame worthy career every step of the way, and rightfully so too. Because of his physical running and jumping abilities, he he was given the nickname of the Rabbit. Where he got it, when he got it, and how he got it, whether it was in college or in the NBA, I have no idea. But looking at a list of nicknames that he went by, the very first one that I saw was the Rabbit, and I can agree with that one. That would further help him become the dynamic player that he was because of his jumping and running abilities. But after playing for 14 years, that seems to take quite a toll on your body, especially in the case of Elgin Baylor. Los Angeles Lakers were literally only, I think, 2 or 3 games into the 1970-1971 NBA season, and Elgin Baylor ended up rupturing his Achilles tendon. And it wasn't until about 9 games into the season where he finally announced his retirement. Nagging knee issues were starting to become a hindrance to his playing career, and the timing of his retirement caused him to miss 2 great achievements. The Los Angeles Lakers' following game after his retirement, which happened to be the first of an NBA record of 33 straight wins, and the Lakers going on to win the NBA championship later that year. So, on one hand, some people say it's a shame that Elgin Baylor never got an NBA championship. He should have at least gotten an NBA Finals at some point during his career. But in that season when he announced his retirement, the Lakers ended up awarding him a championship ring. So, even though he literally only played 2 games that whole season before tearing his Achilles, he technically is credited as an NBA champion, and he has a ring to back that up. As far as the forward position though in the NBA, Elgin Baylor was the last of the, I'll say, great undersized forward in the NBA. Many guards nowadays, or even 20 years ago or so, they're either about the same size as him or much bigger. But he has quite the resume for his career. He finished his playing days with 23,149 points, 3,650 assists, and 11,463 rebounds over a 846 game span. If you look up footage of his signature running bank shot and look it up on YouTube, just type in Elgin Baylor bank shot or something like that, you'll find it. That led to numerous NBA scoring records, and some of them are still standing today. With the bank shot, though, that's where he was able to release the ball quickly and especially effectively over the taller players. But even going on to foreshadow the likes of Michael Jordan and LeBron James, for example, Elgin Baylor, in his own right, he was a star with the Lakers, and he was voted to the All-NBA team for the first 50 years of the league's existence, and rightfully so. If given the chances, I would have voted him. I would have voted him for something like that too. As far as NBA records, Elgin Baylor has 71 points that he scored in November of 1960 against the Knicks. Yeah, I was right. November of 1960. November 15th to be exact. I made a note as far as when the game took place. That was a record at the time. 71 points. One person dropped on the team. However, it was a team record that wouldn't be surpassed until Kobe Bryant dropped 81 points in January of 2006 against the Toronto Raptors. I believe I made mention in my tribute video to Kobe Bryant that I remembered watching that game. And however, the one record that I think will never be broken, and if it is broken one day, who knows? It would have to be by some chance or miracle. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game where he dropped 100 points on the New York Knicks a year and a half later, back in March of '62. I think it was in mid-March. I don't remember the exact date, but Elgin Baylor, in November of 1960, Elgin Baylor drops 71 on the New York Knicks, and then Wilt Chamberlain drops 100 a year and a half later. Elgin Baylor also put up 61 points that he scored in Game 5 of the NBA Finals in 1962. That's still an NBA Finals record, and I don't know if that'll ever be broken. But overall, an underrated rebounder, Elgin Baylor averaged 13.5 rebounds per game throughout his career. A remarkable 20 rebounds per game during the 1960-1961 season. And he put up good numbers during that season. But on the other hand, that was a season average which was exceeded by only 5 other players in NBA history. All of whom were 6 feet 8.5 inches or taller. Nate Thurmond, Jerry Lucas, Bob Pettit, Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell. He was an absolute icon and a basketball pioneer in my eyes. With a name like Elgin Baylor, basketball wouldn't be what it is today without him and without a host of others. No question about it. I remember talking to a friend of mine way back when we were talking as far as your starting lineup for a basketball team. If you could alter the starting lineup for a team, and you were to put Hall of Fame players on the roster, who would you have at this position or that position? Was you able to do this in one of the NBA games? I think on NBA Live 2003, I have this where you can replace guys on the roster with the Hall of Fame players if you wanted to. I always had the Hall of Fame players just because it's one of those things where you look and you think to yourself, if this person from the 1970s or the 1960s were in their prime and playing in the present day, this is the team that they would be on, and this is what it would look like. One of my friends said, "Who would you have at forward for the Los Angeles Lakers?" And immediately, I went, Elgin Baylor. Hands down, you got to put Elgin Baylor on the roster. Even though he played 40-something years before I was born, I still got to put Elgin Baylor on the roster. And I think for NBA Live 2003, my customized roster, this is the roster that I had in the game at the time. I have Wilt Chamberlain at center, Elgin Baylor at forward, Magic Johnson at point guard, and then you have Robert Horry and Kobe Bryant. But now looking at the roster today, this same friend, he said, "Any changes on your Lakers roster?" And I said, "Absolutely not." Well, actually, I take that back. I said slightly. Elgin Baylor, Elgin Baylor, Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, and for center, who I would have at center, I think it all depends on who you ask. Would you go with Shaquille O'Neal, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Wilt Chamberlain? So it's a three-way tie. I don't think it would really matter who you have at center, but you definitely need to have Elgin Baylor on your roster if you were to do a customized roster with Hall of Fame players. I guarantee you, number 22 would definitely be on the roster, no question about it. But that little side story, aside, let me know what you guys think. And I'll talk to you when I talk to you, and I'll see you whenever I see you. Post a comment, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube page if in the event you haven't already done so. And follow me on whatever other social media platforms, etc. that are available. I have them on the front of my YouTube page, so Parler, PlayStation Network, Instagram, and I think those are the only ones that are available, at least off the top of my head that I have on my profile. But that being said, I will talk to you guys later. I'm out. Take care of yourselves and each other. Stay safe, be well, and keep an eye out for another video whenever that time comes. So, in the meantime, I am out. Have a good night. And Elgin Baylor, to many NBA fans and also Los Angeles Lakers fans such as myself, even those who literally never saw you play during your prime, thank you. You will never be forgotten. You will be missed by everybody, and you left a rather impressive resume for yourself. No question about it. A 14-year career, especially one of your caliber, it's something to be desired. Thank you very much, Elgin. Rest in peace. Everyone else, I'm out. Talk to you later. Have a good night.